In this video, we're going to go over absolutely everything that you need to know as a basic beginner sports bettor. I get it. When I log into an online sportsbook, I see a ton of stuff that I simply just don't understand. It can be quite overwhelming at first. And honestly, as a new sports bettor, this almost looks like a completely different language and looking at all these random numbers. And let's face it, when loading up an online sportsbook, it's not that easy. And all you want as a casual sports bettor is to know what all these numbers mean. And I promise you, after watching this video, you will have a full understanding of what you're looking at when looking at online sportsbooks and DFS apps. So let's start from square one. When looking at an online sportsbook, you really want to understand what you're betting on. So let's start out by looking at a couple MLB examples here. Right in front of you, you see the matchup between the Washington Nationals and the Phillies. You'll also notice that you see a plus 1.5 and a minus 1.5 next to the Nationals and the Phillies. Next to that, you'll see an O9 and a U9. And then next to that, you'll see a plus number and another minus number. So allow me to explain each one of these columns. On the far right, you'll see that I have highlighted a minus 258. Unhighlighted, you'll see a plus 210. What you're looking at is called implied odds. The American implied odds represent the price that you're going to pay on a sportsbook if you place the bet saying that the Phillies are going to win this game. You're paying the sportsbook implied odds of minus 258 for them to win the game. And on the flip side, you'd be paying plus 210 for the Nationals to win. And I get it, those numbers do not make sense right now, but allow me to explain. The first thing that you're going to want to understand is that minus numbers mean that you're betting on the favorite to win that game, and plus numbers mean that you're betting on an underdog to win. So per this example, as you can see, the Phillies have a minus 258 implied odds to win this game, therefore they're the favorite to win this game. And the Nationals are plus 210, therefore they are the underdog. Now let's talk about exactly how these implied odds are broken down in terms of a price tag. Knowing that minus numbers mean that these are favorites, let's go ahead and put in, if I were to put in $100 for the Phillies to win, I would get $138.75 back, as you can see right here in terms of the payout. So really, I'm only making $38.75 off the $100 bet. On the flip side, if I were to bet $100 on 210 for the Nationals to win, I would be receiving a payout of $310. As you can see, you get significantly more by placing $100 on the underdog to win this exact matchup. And why is that? Because the Phillies have a significantly higher chance to beat the Nationals. And let's break this down logically. At a sportsbook, why would I offer my bettors almost the exact same payout for two teams that realistically don't have a 50-50% chance to win, when the Phillies are clearly better than the Nationals this year? And this is exactly how the sportsbooks make money. They set accurate implied odds for each individual matchup by ensuring that the percent odds for each team to win are accurate over the long run. As we know, for either team to win this matchup, it's a 100% chance. So each sportsbook setting individual implied odds across every single matchup also implies that they have to set accurate percent odds to hit behind each line. So theoretically, these implied odds can then be converted over to percentages. And for the sake of simplicity, we're not going to go over the formula in this video because the whole point of this video is to go over the very basics. But if you're interested, I'm going to go ahead and put the formula right here. And the main takeaway from my point should be that implied odds equals some sort of percent odds to hit for each individual side, because without those percent odds to hit, how are sportsbooks supposed to set accurate projections? And there are plenty of free calculators out there that calculate implied odds based on the American odds that you have in front of you. So let's look at this first example with the Cleveland Guardians versus Tampa Bay Rays. The Guardians have a money line of plus 180. By putting this into the free calculator, you can see that they're giving this a 35.71% chance for the Guardians to win. And then they're also giving Tampa Bay minus 218 implied odds to win. By putting this into the calculator, you can see that they're giving this a 68.55% chance for the Tampa Bay Rays to win. So now let's talk about this. If you add up the percent odds for the Tampa Bay Rays to win and also the percent odds for the Cleveland Guardians to win, you would think theoretically this should be a 100% chance between the two, right? Because obviously they can't tie in a game of baseball. So when I add up 35.71 plus 68.55, I get a total of 104.26. And this doesn't really make sense, but there's a specific reason why this is over 100%. The implied odds in terms of percent odds to hit do not exactly equal 100%. On average, they should be anywhere between that 100 to 110 range. And let's go over why. This additional 4.26% over 100% is otherwise known as VIG, or juice. Let's talk about what this term means in terms of sportsbooks. Added juice or vig is exactly how the sportsbooks make their money. Let's think about this from another perspective. When you walk into a restaurant and let's say that you end up with a bill of $50, you know that you're not actually paying $50 once you get up and walk away. You're most likely going to pay a tip towards your server, right? Usually anywhere between 15 to 25%. Think about that tip or added gratuity as the exact same thing as vig or juice. The sportsbooks are always tacking on an additional percent that you have to pay to place a bet at their sportsbook. Otherwise, they would probably never break even. For every single bet that a player makes at the sportsbook is making a small percentage back every single time. This ensures that they remain profitable over the long term. So now knowing how implied odds are calculated, you now know that these actually aren't the true percent odds to hit that you see in front of you, otherwise known as implied odds. So how do we find the hidden percent odds to hit here? And these odds are known as fair odds. How do you find the fair odds percent here on these exact money lines? Let's dive in. Again, to my right, you'll see the exact formula on how to remove vig or juice from your implied odds. Instead of breaking down this formula, you can actually head to a free calculator online, and again, there's a lot of them. By plugging in each side to the no vig fair odds calculator, you can see the true odds percent odds to hit after removing the vig. So after removing the vig from plus 180 and minus 218, we're giving the Guardians a 35.25% and the Rays a 65.75% chance to win. And as you can see, when you add up both those percentages, you get 100%. And on the far right, you can see the no vig fair odd American odds. So now by removing the vig from both sides using the no vig calculator, you can put it back into the implied probability calculator and see that the probability percent equals 100%. Also, as I scroll down between these matchups, you'll see that the Reds and Pirates both have negative numbers. At the beginning of the video, I said teams with negative numbers are usually favorites. But since these two are so close in percent odds to hit, they both have a negative number. The two negative numbers just imply the added juice added to both of these implied odds. Now to summarize, the difference between implied odds and fair odds is that the implied odds tack on some additional percent to account for their sports bettors on both sides of the bet so that they remain profitable in the long run. Fair odds are the actual percent odds to hit that the sportsbooks are giving both sides of the line to hit, and that's after removing the vig or juice from the line. Having this baseline knowledge of how implied odds and fair odds work is essential to understanding our tools at DGF. Usually the lines that you'll see at DGF both have an over and an under. Money lines are the most basic form of lines to understand when looking at a sportsbook. Now let's refocus here and go down the columns on how to understand the totals and also run lines. The total column represents the total amount of runs that each team is going to score combined. Also meaning that in this example, you're betting on the Guardians and the Rays combined to score over 8.5 runs or under 8.5 runs. If the Guardians and Rays combined score 9 runs, you'll win the over 8.5 bet. But if they only score 8 runs, then you'll win the under 8.5 bet. And then of course next to the 8.5 lines, you'll see the implied probabilities that DraftKings Sportsbook is giving each side to win. And per this example, they're giving a plus 100 implied odds to hit the over of 8.5. So if I put in $100, I get $200 back. And if I put $100 on this bet on the under 8.5 at minus 120, I'd be getting back $183.33. As we gone over previously in this video, the implied odds will never equal a 50-50 chance. That added juice ensures that the sportsbooks will still make money regardless of what side you're placing on over the long term. And the last column to understand is called run lines. The Guardians run line is set to plus 1.5. The Rays run line is set to minus 1.5. Run lines are very similar to money lines, except the difference between money lines and run lines is that instead of betting on a team to win outright, you're betting on a team to win by a specific amount of runs. In this exact example, if you were to place a bet on minus 1.5 with plus 105 odds on the Rays to win, then you'd be betting on them to win by more than 2 or more runs, because the line is set to 1.5. On the flip side, if you're betting on the Guardians plus 1.5 at minus 125, you're betting on the Guardians to keep within that 1 run range. So you're betting on them to cover by 1.5 runs. Meaning if the Guardians only lose by 1 run to the Rays, then you still win that bet. However, if they lose by 2 runs, then you don't win that bet. And the implied odds are adjusted accordingly because you're getting that buffer in runs. And that's it. That's all you guys need to understand in terms of the basic functionality on how to place bets at a major sportsbook. You need to know this information and how to read these individual lines in order to understand the tools at DGF. And I know what you're thinking, this video was a lot to take in. But that is the beauty behind all of DGF's tools, is that we automate this entire process for you. You don't have to do a single bit of calculating. Be sure to check out our other videos on exactly how to use our tools.